but I'm saying that we could go one way or the other, and we're going to go the wrong way if we keep taking in garbage into our country. Ilhan Omar is garbage. She's garbage. Her friends are garbage.
4:17 a.m. Cedar Riverside neighborhood, Minneapolis, Minnesota. The temperature had plunged to 23 degrees below zero. The kind of cold that turns breath into ice crystals before it leaves your lips. The kind of cold that makes metal burn bare skin on contact. The high-rise apartment towers of what locals call Little Mogadishu stood like frozen sentinels against the black Minnesota sky, their windows dark, their residents unaware that their world was about to shatter. In the shadows of the parking structure below Building 7, 53 FBI agents, 24 ICE officers, and 16 members of the DEA Special Operations Division waited in absolute silence. Their breath fogged in the Arctic air. Their fingers stayed off triggers but ready. Every agent wore night vision. Every agent knew their assignment. And every single one of them understood that what they were about to do would change Minnesota forever. 3 blocks east, a second strike team positioned outside a building marked Community Health Outreach Center. The sign on the door promised free medical consultations and refugee support services. The reality inside was something else entirely. 4 blocks south, a third team surrounded what Google Maps listed as halal fresh foods distribution. A warehouse, supposedly storing rice and grain for food banks. But thermal imaging told a different story. 47 heat signatures in a building that should have been empty at this hour. At precisely 4:22 a.m., the command came through encrypted channels. Execute. The night exploded. Battering rams splintered reinforced doors. Flashbang grenades turned darkness into blinding white light. Agents in black tactical gear poured through breaches like shadows given violent purpose. In the community center, staff members scrambled for back exits only to find more agents waiting. In the warehouse, workers in hazmat suits froze mid-task, their hands still buried in industrial-sized bags of what was labeled as basmati rice. What agents found in those first chaotic minutes would become evidence in the largest fraud prosecution in American history. In the community center's back office, behind a false wall disguised as a supply closet, 6 industrial money counting machines sat on a long conference table. Beside them, shrink-wrapped bricks of cash stacked 4 feet high. The room smelled like ink and plastic. On one wall, a massive diagram connected 27 different non-profit organizations to a single account in Djibouti. Lines branched from there to Dubai, to Nairobi, to Mexico City. But it was the safe that held the real prize. When forensic technicians finally cracked it open 90 minutes later, they found the master ledger, handwritten in coded shorthand that would take cryptographers 3 days to fully decipher. When they did, what emerged was a blueprint for theft so vast, so automated, and so perfectly designed that it had drained nearly 20% of Minnesota's entire welfare budget without triggering a single audit flag. In the warehouse, the discovery was darker. Hidden inside 50-pound bags of rice marked for humanitarian distribution were vacuum-sealed bricks of fentanyl, hundreds of them, each stamped with the scorpion logo, the signature of the Sinaloa Cartel. Street value of what agents seized that night alone exceeded $400 million. But that wasn't the worst of it. In the basement, behind a reinforced door that required breaching charges to open, agents found 43 people, Somali nationals, men and women ranging from 19 to 62 years old. They were emaciated, terrified. Some had chemical burns on their hands and forearms from handling drug precursors without protection. None of them had passports. None of them spoke when agents first entered. They had been trafficked into the country under the guise of refugee resettlement, sponsored by non-profits connected to the network. And once they arrived, they became slaves, forced to work in the drug packaging operation to pay off fabricated debts, told their families back in Somalia would be killed if they tried to escape. The first man to speak did so in broken English. His words would later be entered into the federal court record. She promised us new life. She gave us death. Every investigation has a center of gravity, a point around which all other elements orbit. In Minneapolis, that center had a name: State Senator Amira Hassan. 6:42 a.m. FBI Cyber Forensics Laboratory, Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. The room hummed with the sound of cooling fans and keyboard clicks. 14 analysts sat before triple monitor workstations, their faces bathed in the blue glow of data streams. Coffee cups littered every surface. Nobody had slept. Nobody planned to. On the central display wall, a network diagram pulsed with connections. Nodes representing shell companies, offshore accounts, non-profit organizations, government contracts, and individual names spread across the screen like a spider's web drawn by a mathematician having a nervous breakdown. The operation had been given a code name found in the seized files themselves: Project Sahel, named for the arid region stretching across Africa south of the Sahara, a region known for drought, desperation, and smuggling routes older than most nations. Whoever designed this network had a dark sense of poetry. As analysts cracked layer after layer of encryption, the scope of the scheme became clear. At the bottom were the ghost patients. 84,000 stolen identities, mostly belonging to immigrants who had either died, returned to their home countries, or never existed in the first place. Every night, automated systems would generate thousands of fraudulent claims. Therapy sessions that never happened. Home health visits to addresses that were vacant lots. Autism treatments for children who had never been examined. The billing algorithms were sophisticated enough to vary claim amounts, timing, and service types to avoid pattern detection. They exploited Minnesota's notoriously weak verification systems, where nearly 90% of welfare recipients faced minimal scrutiny due to staffing shortages and political reluctance to be seen as targeting immigrant communities. In 3 years, these ghost claims drained $4.7 billion from Medicaid alone. But that was only the beginning. Above the ghost patients sat the nonprofit network, 847 organizations, all technically separate, all filing their own claims, all funneling money into a web of accounts that crisscrossed the globe before landing in a single consolidated fund controlled by a holding company registered in the Cayman Islands. These nonprofits billed for childcare that was never provided, job training programs that consisted of a single classroom with folding chairs, and mental health services delivered by unlicensed staff reading from scripts. Total take from the nonprofit network, $11.3 billion over 4 years. And at the top of the pyramid, providing political cover and regulatory interference, sat Senator Amira Hassan. Elected in 2022 on a platform of refugee advocacy and community empowerment, Hassan had risen quickly through Minnesota politics. She was photogenic, articulate, and carried the compelling personal narrative of a refugee success story. Media coverage was overwhelmingly positive. Critics who questioned the rapid growth of nonprofits in her district were dismissed as xenophobic or racist. But the seized servers told a different story. Every major decision in the network required Hassan's encrypted authorization. Her digital signature appeared on fund transfers, organizational charters, and communications with cartel contacts in Mexico. She received weekly briefings on fraud revenues and drug distribution metrics delivered through a secure messaging application that automatically deleted messages after they were read. One message, recovered through forensic analysis of server memory, chilled investigators to the bone. Phase 3 is operational. Estimated monthly throughput now exceeds 2.1 million pills. Sahel Infrastructure Holding. American systems remain blind. The message was sent to a known Sinaloa cartel lieutenant based in Culiacan. Senator Amira Hassan had not merely stolen billions from American taxpayers. She had transformed her district into a cartel logistics hub, using stolen welfare money to fund drug importation operations that were flooding the Midwest with fentanyl. This was not corruption. This was conquest. And the investigation was just beginning. 5:30 a.m. Regional Federal Task Force Command Center, Hennepin County. The room looked like a war room because that's exactly what it was. Massive digital displays covered 3 walls, showing real-time feeds from body cameras, surveillance drones, and satellite imagery. A tactical operations table in the center displayed a 3-dimensional map of the Minneapolis metropolitan area, with 47 red markers pulsing at locations identified as network nodes. Deputy Director Marcus Webb of the FBI stood at the head of the table, reviewing deployment orders one final time. Beside him, representatives from DEA, ICE, DHS, and the U.S. Marshal Service coordinated their respective teams. The operation that was about to launch had been codenamed Veil-Lift. Over 1,200 federal agents had been mobilized from field offices across 6 states. 48 SWAT teams stood ready. 4 Black Hawk helicopters circled in holding patterns above the city. Armored vehicles were staged at 16 forward positions. At 6 a.m., Webb gave the order: execute all warrants simultaneously. What followed was the largest single-day law enforcement action in Minnesota history. Across Minneapolis and its suburbs, agents struck 47 locations in the span of 90 minutes. They hit nonprofit offices disguised as community centers. They raided warehouses listed as food distribution hubs. They breached luxury homes in lakeside suburbs purchased with laundered money. They surrounded apartment buildings where network lieutenants lived in units paid for by shell companies. In Burnsville, a secondary warehouse yielded an additional 200 kilograms of fentanyl and $6 million in cash bundled for transport. In Eden Prairie, agents found a server farm operating in the basement of a building registered as a child care training facility. Those servers contained the complete financial records of Project Sahel, including account numbers, transaction histories, and communications stretching back 5 years. In Bloomington, a raid on a halal restaurant revealed a counting room in the basement where cash from drug sales was processed and prepared for deposit into dozens of business accounts around the city. By noon, the numbers were staggering. 93 arrests made, over 400 kilograms of fentanyl seized, enough to kill 32 million people, $73 million in cash recovered, 214 bank accounts frozen pending forfeiture proceedings, and one state senator taken into custody at her lakeside residence while attempting to board a private charter flight to Toronto. The underworld of Minneapolis had taken more damage in 6 hours than in the previous 6 years combined. But the investigation was far from over, because as agents dug deeper into the seized records, they discovered something that made the fraud and the drugs look almost minor by comparison. 2:15 p.m. FBI Evidence Processing Center, Minneapolis. Special Agent Jennifer Torres had been reviewing patrol records for 3 hours when she found the pattern. At first, it seemed like random noise. Shifts changed, officers called in sick, patrol routes were adjusted for construction or special events. Normal administrative variations in any police department. But when Torres overlaid these changes against known drug shipment dates extracted from cartel communications, a different picture emerged. Every single time a major fentanyl shipment moved through Minneapolis, specific patrol units were reassigned or called off. Every single time. The statistical probability of this being coincidental was less than 1 in 40 million. Someone inside Minneapolis law enforcement was coordinating with the cartel. Further analysis revealed the scope of the infiltration. 14 officers in the Minneapolis Police Department were receiving regular payments through shell companies connected to the network. 3 sergeants, 2 lieutenants, and a deputy chief all showed financial connections to accounts controlled by Senator Hassan's organization. But the corruption went beyond simple bribery. The compromised officers had created a parallel command structure within the department. They controlled who patrolled which routes and when. They decided which tips got investigated and which got lost in paperwork. They ensured that any inquiry into the nonprofits or the warehouses was quietly buried under administrative delays. One honest detective, whose name remains sealed for his protection, had tried to investigate suspicious activity at one of the warehouses 18 months earlier. His report was flagged as requiring review. Then his caseload was suddenly increased. Then he was transferred to a desk assignment processing parking violations. His investigation never went anywhere. When agents interviewed him after the raids, he broke down. "I knew something was wrong," he said through tears. "I knew it, but every time I tried to do something, the system pushed back. I thought I was crazy. I thought maybe I was seeing things that weren't there. Now I know. The system wasn't broken. It was working exactly as they designed it." By evening, federal agents had arrested 9 Minneapolis police officers, including Deputy Chief Robert Halverson, who had served on the force for 22 years and was 18 months from retirement. When they searched his home, they found $200,000 in cash hidden in his garage and a burner phone containing text messages coordinating patrol adjustments with network operatives. The badge that was supposed to protect the people of Minneapolis had been turned into a weapon against them. But the revelations weren't finished. Analysis of financial records revealed that Project Sahel was not limited to Minneapolis. The network had established distribution nodes in 7 additional states. Chicago served as a secondary hub, with 12 connected nonprofits funneling money and drugs through the city. Detroit had 5 nodes. Columbus had 3. Kansas City, St. Louis, Milwaukee, and Indianapolis each had at least 2. The logistics system used legitimate trucking contractors who believed they were hauling humanitarian supplies between community organizations. The trucks were never inspected because they were flagged in transportation databases as carrying charitable goods exempt from standard searches. Conservative estimates suggested the network was moving over 400 kilograms of fentanyl per week across the Midwest, enough to manufacture more than 2.1 million pills every 7 days. The money flowed in reverse. Drug profits were collected in cash, deposited through dozens of small businesses across multiple cities, wire transferred to accounts in Dubai and Nairobi, and then cycled back into the United States as charitable donations to the nonprofit network. The cycle was self-sustaining and nearly invisible, and buried in Senator Hassan's private files. Investigators found the most chilling document of all, a 5-year strategic plan titled Sahel 2030. The plan outlined a gradual expansion of the network across 23 states. It projected annual revenues exceeding $60 billion by 2030. It described the systematic recruitment of additional political figures at state and local levels. And it detailed plans to establish permanent cartel infrastructure that would be legally protected through captured regulatory systems. One passage stood out. The American system is designed to resist external attack, but is defenseless against internal capture. By controlling the officials who oversee the systems that are supposed to monitor us, we become invisible. We become the system itself. Senator Amira Hassan had not merely been stealing money or trafficking drugs. She had been building the foundation for a permanent cartel state within American borders. The system had not been infiltrated. It had been redesigned. The legal consequences came swiftly. Senator Amira Hassan was indicted on 73 counts, including wire fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to distribute controlled substances, human trafficking, and racketeering. If convicted on all charges, she faces effective life imprisonment. 47 co-conspirators were indicted alongside her, including the 9 compromised law enforcement officers, 12 nonprofit directors, and 15 financial operatives who managed the laundering networks. Federal authorities have frozen over $400 million in assets and initiated forfeiture proceedings against properties, vehicles, and accounts connected to the network. The investigation has expanded to include the 7 additional states where network nodes were identified. Parallel operations are currently being planned for Chicago, Detroit, and Columbus. Minnesota has begun comprehensive reform of its welfare verification systems. Enhanced identity verification, AI-powered claim auditing, and mandatory site inspections have already reduced fraudulent claims by 68% in pilot programs. The community most affected by the scandal, the Somali-American population of Minneapolis, faces a painful reckoning. Legitimate nonprofit organizations have seen donations plummet as public trust collapsed. Community leaders have called for transparency and accountability, while condemning those who exploited shared heritage for criminal gain. The 43 trafficking victims discovered in the warehouse raid are receiving federal protection and services. Their testimony will be crucial in the prosecution of Hassan and her co-conspirators. But here is what keeps investigators awake at night. The software that powered the ghost patient claims is still circulating on the dark web. The methodology has been documented and sold to criminal organizations in at least 4 other countries. The blueprint for this kind of capture is now public knowledge to anyone willing to pay for it. Senator Hassan was one node in a network that spans continents. The Sinaloa cartel has not been significantly weakened by these arrests. They will find new partners. They will build new systems. They will try again. And the question that haunts everyone who worked this case is simple. If a state senator could run a cartel logistics operation from her district office for 4 years without triggering a single major investigation, who else is doing it right now? Which other cities have been captured? Which other systems have been redesigned? Power does not always announce itself with violence. Sometimes it only needs silence. Sometimes it only needs ambition. Sometimes it only needs a compelling story and a community too afraid to ask hard questions. The fentanyl that flowed through Minneapolis has already claimed thousands of lives across the Midwest. Families destroyed, children orphaned, futures erased. The $19 billion stolen from welfare programs represented services never delivered to people who genuinely needed them. The homeless who went without shelter. The children who went without care. The sick who went without treatment. This is not a story about one corrupt politician. This is a story about what happens when we stop watching, when we assume that good intentions are enough, when we let cultural sensitivity become a shield for criminal enterprise. Minneapolis is trying to heal. The investigation continues. Justice, slow and imperfect as it is, grinds forward. But healing requires honesty. And honesty requires that we face uncomfortable truths about how vulnerable our systems really are. If you made it this far, you understand what's at stake. This story needs to be seen. Share it. Talk about it. Demand accountability from the officials who are supposed to protect these systems. Because the next Project Sahel is already being planned somewhere. And the only thing standing between it and success is whether enough people are paying attention. This was a fictional dramatization inspired by real concerns about fraud and organized crime. But the questions it raises are real. And the answers matter more than ever. The investigation continues.